On The Sopranos, not surprisingly, there's no shortage of death.
At our age, it's enough surprise we're still alive every morning.
In this video, I'm going to go through the death scenes that I found to be the most intense. Just a forewarning ahead of time, some of these scenes are obviously very graphic, so I'm not necessarily going to show them in their entirety. Now with that, let's begin. Gerry Torciano is killed in stage 5 while he's out to dinner with Silvio Dante, and just like Bobby says, you probably don't even hear it when it happens, right? I think that's what happened for Sil here.
The fucking scary thing was, I didn't know what happened until after the shot was fired.
We don't get to know Doc Santoro very well. We just know that he's a high-ranking guy in the Lupertazzi family and that he's one of the contenders to be the next boss. But when he really fucks up is when he decides to take a piece of food off Phil's plate without really asking.
Nice gravy, huh?
Yeah. Anyway, your taste.
How's Patricia? You mind?
Go ahead.
Gotta learn your manners, Doc. The infamous rat.
Good morning, Rat.
When Tony kills Fabian, aka Febby Petrulio, aka Fred Peters, it was like an early test to see whether or not folks could stomach or even like this guy, Tony Soprano, who choked a guy to death on the side of the road with seemingly no mercy. And, in fact, we liked him a whole lot. Of course, Febby was not only a rat, but also a pretty big scumbag, which we saw for ourselves when he was telling those two people to go kill Tony and maybe even his daughter, Meadow. Even if it was just about killing Tony, that would have left a girl alone in Maine with a murdered father.
Sorry, Daddy.
Even Tony had the courtesy to not do it in front of Febby's wife and young daughter.
You know how much trouble you're in now? You took an oath, and you broke it. You know, one thing about us wise guys, the hustle never ends. Jimmy says hello from hell, you fuck.
Not only did Richie put Beansy into a wheelchair for life shortly after getting out of the can, despite all his talk of yoga and meditation, he didn't know how to keep his hands in his pockets with Janice either. Talk about not following his own rule. In any case, he ends up hitting her one night, and Janice isn't going to take that. So, we see what happens.
The fuck out of here. I'm in no mood for your...
We hear that this guy Mustang Sally has anger issues. Ralph mentioned something about him throwing someone off a mezzanine level at the Meadowlands, so his whacking seems to be long overdue. And even though Bobby Sr. was almost on his own last breath, he sure went out with a bang, taking down Mustang Sally and another guy with him, before tragically dying in a car crash.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should send him something. Some flowers or some shit.
Oh, what the fuck? And that girl you used to date, that, Valentina. Well, maybe you should, go see Pi. Take your mind off.
And then, Tony gets a call that there's been a fire where Pyomai lives. So Tony, of course, thinks that it's Ralph who set the fire. And between Tracee and Pyomai, Tony just couldn't handle it anymore.
Beautiful innocent creature, what did she ever do to you?
She was a beautiful, innocent creature. What'd she ever do to you? I think he's talking about both Tracee and Pyomai. We'll get to Tracee a little bit later. So, the whole Pyomai thing, that was just fuel to the fire. No pun intended.
Hi, Lorraine. I'm Bill.
Something that sticks out to me is that, like another woman that we see killed, Adriana, Lorraine is also crawling on her hands and knees trying to get away from being shot. But it was even less dignified because not only was she crawling, but she was naked. So it was almost like turning her into a baby of sorts. I don't know. Pretty brutal.
I'll follow you home.
Whatever. Let's go.
Angelo was killed in retaliation for the murder of Joey Peeps by Tony Blundetto, who had been paid by Rusty Emilio and Angelo to take out Joey Peeps. So this is retaliation, which then, as we know, leads to further retaliation. Another thing that makes me feel badly about Angelo's death is the thing that he's bringing home from the store is actually something for a little kid, his grandson, the one that he was so excited to take to the park and get ice cream with.
Great. Philly, you know me. Couldn't you fucking retire?
Tony Blundetto kind of went rogue and decided to take out Billy Leotardo and attempt to take out Phil Leotardo after they killed Angelo. Angelo had been one of Tony B's really good buddies in prison. So, when he heard that Angelo was killed, I guess you could call him an army of one.
This army of one thing. What happens when each army of one decides, fuck it?
Vito Spatafore was killed in Season 6, Episode 11, Cold Stones, after being outed as gay when caught dressed up at a gay club dancing with another man at the end of Season 6, Episode 5. He flees to New Hampshire but just couldn't stay away from the life, so he eventually returns to New Jersey and meets his maker. Tony would just as easily probably have forgotten about it and could have really used that $200K that Vito offered for later on when Tony owes Hesh, but at the same time, Tony wouldn't have wanted things to escalate to an all-out war because of it. So when Vito goes back to his motel in Cold Stones, there are people there waiting for him from the Lupertazzi family, Phil in particular, and it's lights out for Vito. Big Puss. Wow. That one's a lot to process, even though I've seen it countless times. I don't know about you, but for me, Puss's death was when I realized just how attached I was becoming to these characters and to the show as a whole. We know Puss was a rat. We saw it and heard it for ourselves many times. But it was still sad to see him go. And we know that it also impacted Tony, Sil, and Polly. We see them all having dreams of Puss later on in one form or another. And even on the boat, while Puss was still alive, Sil went back up to the deck, claimed that he was having seasickness.
Fucking noise.
Where you going?
I think he really wasn't looking forward to taking out his friend. We know it's not very hard for Sil to do that in other scenarios. You know, Adriana, etc.
Not in the face, okay?
Interesting how he says, not in the face, okay? As if he's gonna have a traditional burial with an open casket.
You were like a brother to me. To all of us.
Yeah. I gotta sit down. I feel like I can't stand. Is that okay, Tony? Did I sit?
It's really heartbreaking to me. Not because Christopher didn't necessarily have it coming. In fact, if he weren't Christopher Moltisanti, he probably would have been dead long before that. But when you see Tony hanging up before pressing the next one to dial 911, it's hard to explain that sinking feeling in your gut. It's a look of pure evil on Tony's face, though, again, some would say that Tony should have done that a long time ago. Nevertheless, it's still sad to see someone's face and watch as their life disappears. It's also sad, of course, for Christopher's wife and baby girl. Bobby Baccalieri's death is tragic in many ways. It's graphic, it's intense. Now, granted, he should have brought his cell phone with him into the store,
Answer the fucking thing.
especially knowing the situation and what was going on. But in any case, he genuinely has a good heart, in my opinion. So seeing this, with all its intensity and drama, and even the train going around the tracks, is extremely powerful and extremely tragic. Phil Leotardo's death was particularly gruesome, and it happened at the end of the series, the finale, in fact, Made in America, and it happens at a gas station. Something interesting to note about gas stations is, well, first, Phil being told that he just had bad gas earlier on in Kaisha, and beyond that, way back when, earlier in this video, where did Tony spot his rat, Febby Petrulio? At the gas station. But not only that, then the car rose over his head. Talk about decapitating and doing business with the rest, huh? I guess Phil didn't realize that he was going to be the one receiving that.
I'll see you up there.
Adriana La Cerva is someone we meet very early on. In fact, we see her in the pilot. Not as Adriana, but as a hostess. But she did such a great job in season 1, so she was made into a very important character, all the way up until the very end. Well, her end. She was killed in long-term parking after admitting to her fiancé, Christopher, that she'd been talking with the FBI, which she'd been doing ever since she was brought into their offices at the end of season 4, episode 2, No Show. When Adriana first admits to Christopher that she's been talking with the FBI, he tells her that he's thinking about it. Thinking about going into witness protection with her. But whatever he may have been thinking, we know he ended up telling Tony about Adriana. And then Tony had Sil kill her under the pretense of picking her up to take her to the hospital because Christopher was supposedly there after attempting suicide. Interesting how 1 season later, Tony's son, AJ, does end up in the hospital for that reason. Adriana's death was heartbreaking, any way you spin it. And you wonder, at what point does she realize they're not on the way to the hospital? Was it when they got off at the exit that wasn't near the hospital? Was it as soon as she got in the car and saw the look on Sil's face? Or was it not until they turned and drove into the woods and Sil parked the car and got out to go grab her from the passenger side door? Any way you look at it, yes, she was technically a rat. And yes, it was definitely a heartbreaking death.
Why are you crying? He's gonna be fine.
I'm so scared.
Hey, listen. This guy, he's a tough kid. Anybody can make it through something like this is Christopher. You hear me?
Come on.
No,
Come on.
please.
Tracee.
That's right. That's right. Get it all out. Get it all out, you little hooer.
Not only was her death brutal, vicious, totally out of line and out of bounds in every way imaginable, it really puts a cloud over Tony and Ralph's relationship from that point on, basically, until Tony kills Ralph.
It make you feel good? You feel like a man?
Tony just couldn't imagine how Ralph could do this to a girl that was nearly the same age as his daughter, Meadow. When he saw Tracee lying on the ground like that, all bloodied and lifeless, he imagines that happening to his own daughter,
She fell?
It's my story.
You stupid motherfucker.
So, that's all for now. What do you think were the most intense death scenes on The Sopranos?
Your eyes are